excited to welcome Lilly Wachowski to the stage.
Queers. And also non-queers. So all you future queers question certain things.
There's no way that all of us are not walking out at least 20% gayer. How's it going? How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. This is
It's
wild.
good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for making this incredible movie, first and foremost.
Yeah, it's a gift that keeps on giving. The best screening of any of our movies that we've ever had was in the Castro Theater at the end of the Frameline Film Festival. And the Castro was just packed with queer women and lesbians, and we hadn't ever experienced anything like this, where just from the very first reel on, the audience was just roaring. And we got to the end, and it felt like the whole audience like turned around, and they were like, you know, who made this? These two dudes?
Spoilers.
And I could just tell like they had just seen something that they had never seen before. These two women driving off into the sunset, and it just really, yeah, I was so grateful that I could, me and my sister could give them that. So
Yeah. It's also so fascinating to see this movie that is playing with so many tropes of the heist movie, the femme fatale, all of these things. And yet as you were making it, I know you had some feedback from the studio asking if Corky could be a man. Do I have that right? Folks, how does this work? How does it? I'm curious to hear from you. I mean, that's only one of probably the many asinine ideas that you had from the studio, but this movie works because you were playing with the tropes, because you have people that can't understand this desire that these two women might have for each other. Is that something you felt as you were going through the process of getting it made in the first place?
Well, there was like one part of it that kind of, because the producer on it was this guy Dino De Laurentiis, this like you know, mega old school, old Italian patriarch producer, and he had brought over all of like Fellini's films. That's how Dino got going, and then, you know, made some unbelievable films like, you know, 3 Days of the Condor and Barbarella, and so you know, when we pitched this to him, and because he came at the material in this sort of, you know, older Italian titillating kind of way, you know, a hetero patriarchal kind of way, that he was like, hey, these lesbians, yes, and, you know, it was, we shot, the very first scene that we shot was the lesbian part. And we had, because Susie Bright was in it, we were like, oh yeah, bring all your buddies and your pals, and bring them down. We'll put everybody in the lesbian bar. And, you know, it was like, you know, it looks like a lesbian bar. And, saw that footage, and he was like, what is this? We have to reshoot. And they're like, what are you talking about, Dino? It's like, these are like actual lesbians from San Francisco. It's like, this is not what a lesbian bar looks like. And so we eventually we shot some actiony stuff, and he kind of like, you know, he always kept an eyeball on the movie, like he's like, oh, what have I got myself into? We're gonna make this turkey or something like that, and yeah, and then, you know, we showed it to him, and at the end he was like, how did you? This is a goddamn good movie. So, it was a funny process, but I mean, because of that initial, like, he was thinking it was going to be something else, he didn't, they kind of left us alone a little bit.
You have so much fun with the male characters in this movie. I don't think I realized how funny this movie was until I'm watching it with all of you, and we just kept laughing at the men. Is that something, yeah, again, to play with the tropes is such a beautiful thing in this. Was that something that was very deliberate for you to be able to like think about the masculinity of these characters? I mean, Caesar is incredible. I almost feel for him by the end, which is hard to imagine, but really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was just, we just wanted to make the women have a lot of agency, and all of the men would look at them and see something completely different from what the reality was. And I guess that sort of, it goes along with the story I just told about Dino. He looked at the script and saw something different than what it was. And so I like when, you know, art and reality run in parallel. And whenever I make something, I always look to that as like an indicator of, you know, whether or not the art is like effective, because it's like speaking to this true thing.
And one of the things that I think is so beautiful is, again, like Caesar can only imagine that Violet is bound to him because of the money, and tries to like tell her that, but obviously he knows it's not real. And the fact that you know, Corky and Violet stay together through this, they don't leave each other, they're bound on a deeper level. And I was thinking about you know, the compulsory heterosexuality and lesbian existence, that article by Adrienne Rich, and thinking about how women's lives have been shaped by men so much, the conversation that they have at the beginning of how different they are, because Violet can pass as this, you know, straight woman, and this real conversation about, are they different? And the way you end it with, are we different? You know, are we so different? I don't know. It's really just so special to see that, and I'm curious for you. I think you said a good, sorry, I'm a little nervous. How are the women bound to one another in this movie, do you think? How did you see that come across as you finished the movie and getting to look back on it now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that like a lot of what we're dancing around and poking at a bit is well, I mean, there's like lots of stuff. There's like a lot of like you know, identity stuff that we're dealing with ourselves on a personal level. So we're like, you know, I think it's hilarious that the very first shot of my entire filmography is a closet. Irony can be pretty ironic sometimes.
Also, that closet was like 30 feet tall, right?
It was a giant closet. this idea that like, you know, you find this butch woman or a masked woman in this sort of frilly closet with all these like, you know, disco, interesting outfits and stuff. And and then just like the idea of like, you know, the boxes that we make out of our lives. And so, like I know, like we're writing about, you know, our own lives and our own like desire for liberation, right? So we're struggling there, and we're those characters in a lot of ways, where we're identifying with, you know, the both of them in this in the same way like the film ends, and they're like, there's no difference between us, and it's just like, that's like me and Lana working out our shit to some extent. I'd also say that like that in the idea of striving for liberation, and, you know, as like two closeted trans women, we're finding ways to connect to and empathize with, you know, other modes of liberation, and we're finding a lot of we're drawn to a lot of those narratives, and so we like can empathize and sympathize with, like, you know, queer liberation and women's liberation and black and brown liberation. And, you know, when we come up with the Matrix, you know, we're working out a lot of that stuff as well. And so when I think of like how we're going to all like get out of this mess that we're all in, it like has to do with connectivity and solidarity and you know, creating like mass movements. And so like in the queer credo, we keep us safe, and the trans credo, we keep us safe. That is like, that's part of that. So that was a very circuitous answer, but I think I did it. I did it.
So we gotta talk a bit about Susie Bright. First of all, I want to there's an incredible article on Susie Bright's website talking about her work on the movie. I would highly recommend checking that out. One quote that I found from it that I especially loved, and this is written before you two transitioned, or came out at least. The actresses mirrored them, not the other way around, referring to you and your sister, which is so beautiful. And so I just want to talk a little bit about how you reached out to Susie. I know it was first just to be in the cameo, but were you dreaming that she would do more with the movie? Was that just not even something you could imagine? And then clearly it worked out for the best, that she helped out more than that.
We had done a lot of our research at Women and Children First. I mean, we bought all of Susie's books, you know, her essays were hugely influential. She had this quote that we really attached to when we were thinking of overtly lingering cameras on hands, and we were like, oh yeah, let's shoot that stuff. That's good stuff. One of the quotes was, we have, like, it was something that, I'm getting it wrong, but it was something like, we have probing, turgid members as well, we just call them hands. And so, we're like, oh, that's good. And, you know, we finished the script, and we got involved because we, you know, started this. He made some money off this other script that we wrote, and he was like, "What's next?" And we're like, "Well, we're thinking about making this movie." And then as it got closer, we were like, "Whoa, this, you know, these two people making this. And we're like, it'd be good if we could like reach out to the community and bring the community into the movie itself. And you know, this I don't even know if there was email back then. Probably like some AOL account.
Yeah, Caesar had his little.
That's right. That's right. So we probably emailed Susie on some AOL thing, and we were like, "Hey, we wrote this script. You know, maybe you'd want to check it out." And we sent it to her, and she loved it, and she's like, "We have to talk." And we went up to San Francisco, and we hung out, and we had lunch, and she was like, "Yeah, I'd love to be a part of this." So yeah.
It's interesting too because in this article she talks about having worked previously on a Lizzie Borden film, and a lot of her contributions to that ultimately being pulled out by the editor, and feeling really disappointed, like being at the screening for that, and people being like, "What is this?" So it's just incredible that you were able to keep so much of what you shot and keep the intent of it. Can you talk a little bit about what was not allowed in terms of too suggestive with the hands and the thrusting and the censor board and all of that?
Yeah, so we initially, when we submitted it, it came back with an NC-17, and we were like, you know, what the hell, you know, there's like nothing in here that you hadn't seen in any heterosexual, you know, film or, you know, and they said that it was just that the women looked like they were enjoying themselves. And so we were furious by it, and we were like, but we didn't, you just couldn't release an NC-17 movie back then. And so we had to, we changed, because the sex scene is like an uninterrupted shot, and we ended up we swapped out the shot with like a shot that was crummier, in our opinion. And then like we took out a couple of like moments of violence because they were like, "Oh yeah, that's too violent." So we were like, "Okay." And so we swapped out the one sex scene shot, but you can still see that the foreign version has the director's cut. So and the sex scene is like, it's way better. The camera like pans back, and you can see Violet's hand in you know, Corky's junk, and they're going to town, and it's like, it's way better. They were enjoying themselves.
What was it like working with those two? They seem to be really just so lovely.
Yeah, my fondness for them just like gets bigger and bigger. The more I think of like what they, just like the courage that they brought to the film, and the amount of like joy and love and trust. Like we were first-time filmmakers, and we had so many folks just like say, "Hell no, I'm not doing this." So yeah, I'm so appreciative of everything they've done for us.
One thing that I think it's so fascinating, you know, this movie is obviously very different, knowing that it's made by two trans women. I'm thinking a lot about the really incredible Andrea Long-Chu essay on liking women. I would highly recommend, and it's a lot about, you know, when you think you're a straight boy and you keep looking at women and you're like, do I like them or do I want to be like them? It makes it a little bit different. I'm just curious for you, how, you know, I'm sure you talked a little bit about how did these two straight boys from Chicago make this movie, and sort of the confusion that was maybe there initially. Do you feel like this movie has shifted in terms of its public life, how people responded to it with you after coming out, and again, it being a very different movie made by two trans women?
You know, I think that, well, I mean, the queers have always loved it. When they find that, they love it. And it's, you know, that screening, that Castro screening, it was, I wish I could just like stop hearing about the film from, you know, people outside the community after that. Because it's like, I knew like this was who we made this for. And so, like I kind of, you know, as you get older and, you know, you start looking back at your life and the stuff that you've done. Like I can appreciate, like the more that I talk about it and the more that I connect it to, you know, our liberation and, you know, like seeing that in the themes of the Matrix and then, you know, some of the other stuff that we like to write about. I think that it provides cinephiles and like moviegoers with a level of context that they can go and try to find ways to appreciate our films, you know, retrospectively. And so I don't know. Let's talk. That's good.
I will say, if you want to read someone really, really smart talking about this movie and all of your other work, Cale Keegan has a book about all of your movies. And one of the things that he talks about that I wrote down today was, you know, kind of talking about the resisting the modern insistence on singular and incompatible LGBT identity positions. The film demonstrates how trans and queer subjectivities are interdependent and are laced around fundamental questions of identification and desire. What I was saying before about, do I want to be her? Do I want to be with her? Those sort of things. It's so incredible that, again, Quirky and Violet are very different women. At least that's how we imagine them initially. And then by the end, that line is less clear. And they find so much in one another that is the same, but they also don't need to fully resolve that. And I think that sort of ambiguity is incredible.
Yes. We contain multitudes.
Does it ever get weird having people ask you questions about your art? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It's funny because like all of my friends and my family, they were seeing me pop up on like WBZ and like they were like, "Hey, what's this? What are you doing?" And I'm just putting on we're doing this Sapphapalooza thing, and I'm gonna do a Q&A over there, and they're like, "Well, thanks for telling us." I want to toot my own horn.
Also, this thing sold out like ages ago.
Yeah.
Well, we have just a few more minutes here. It would be remiss not to talk about Chicago. I know this is not shot in Chicago, but it's still a Chicago movie. Do you want to talk about how you brought Chicago into the movie, even though, again, it's not shot here, but you still got the North Franklin Avenue and the Chicago crime family and all of this stuff?
I mean, you know, in this business, you never shoot anything where it's set. And so that was the thing that we, you know, learned from the industry, even though it's like, you know, complete falsehood. But I had to unlearn that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I've lived all over, and I always come back here. There's something that is, you know, I'm one of those people who goes outside of Chicago, and I talk about Chicago and how great it is. And, you know, I think that, like, in all of its complexities, Chicago represents, like, the best of us, but also, like, the worst of us, and it's like, it's all wrapped up in this thing. And it's like, especially when I think about being in the city right now, at this time, and like, you know, like people are like, oh my God, am I gonna stay in this country? Am I gonna leave? And I was like, well, you know, if I'm gonna stay anywhere, I'm gonna fucking take my chances here in this city that I love. So,
You're also not, I mean, we've gotten to know each other this year because you're building community, and it's just so special to be a part of that. So thank you for all of the community you've built, all the trans people you have realized through making your movies. We are so spoiled to have you in this beautiful city. Chicago everywhere. And it's so fun to wear that anywhere. To just be like, you can't forget Chicago.
Yeah.
I love that. Last thing that I want to just, because it's just too funny, do you remember the moment at the beginning of the screening in San Francisco where one of the sponsors of the festival went up on stage and talked about the Isuzu and how all the lesbians should buy the Isuzu? This is from Susie's. I'm gonna, okay.
Wait, to keep telling the story.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
So this is from Susie's writing. Some idiot from the festival sponsoring advertisers got up to plug why everyone should buy an Isuzu. He was filled with all that new gay marketing crapola and told the packed house with utter seriousness that the new Isuzu was the top choice among today's lesbian shoppers. So she then gets on the mic, and before the movie even starts, she says, "All my friends just ride the bus. What are you talking about?" She said that was the first rousing ovation that the movie ever got. The rest is history.
I believe it. I was probably sweating bullets and not completely nervous. Yeah. So.
It just was too good of an anecdote that I probably would bring it up. So.
I like it.
Anyways, well, thank you so much, Lilly. This has been incredible.